So, you fancy yourself among the bravest of explorers, I hear. Strong body, keen intellect, strident confidence, peak physical form, years of experience, and a hero's courage, you say. Well, before you take a single step into the night below, take heed, my friend, for this is not your run-of-the-mill exploration or dungeon dive. Today, we depart the sun-drenched realms of Faerun, where azure blue heavens bathe lush verdant landscapes, to begin a series of expeditions into the suffocating grip of darkness. An ancient subterranean world beneath our very feet, filled with uncharted lands and hidden secrets. A realm whose size and scope extend far beyond the common understanding of the vibrant lands above. Within the true scale of these depths, we will explore a darkness so absolute, so vast, that whole cultures have flourished and perished without ever witnessing the glow of a single sunbeam. Oh, you may think you know the Underdark, but I assure even you veteran scholars, at the end of our journeys together, assuming we don't become the prey of one of literally dozens of savage creatures, enslaved by no less than 3 ancient civilizations, or thralls to aberrant horrors from Aboleth to mind flayers. All very big assumptions now that I think about it. However, if we do survive, I am certain you will have gathered knowledge, obscure lore, and hidden secrets never before revealed to any surface dweller. Now, with such an epic undertaking, it should then come as no surprise that today, in this first volume of our expedition, we will only scratch the surface of all the Underdark has to offer. But as we prepare to start the mother of lore deep dives, let me share with you a preview of the extensive discoveries to come. 9 volumes in total, plus a few surprises in between, all from my original script of story and lore that now exceeds 36,000 words and literally hundreds of hours in research. I am confident that this definitive Underdark series will be the most comprehensive lore deep dive you will find on the platform or anywhere for that matter. It's a bold claim, I know, but give me a chance to deliver, and if I do, then surely I've earned that like, sub, and maybe even check out my Patreon. Links are below. Okay, surface dwellers, are you ready? I think I'm about as excited as I have ever been to lead a lore expedition. It's time to take our first step into the umbral embrace of the lightless lands, a descent into the Underdark. Down. Always down, a directionality ingrained in those that reside in this inverted world, a realm divorced from light's harsh judgment, a heresy against the forever night. Here you can forget the reassuring horizons of sunrise and sunset, and dismiss any concept of day and night as time becomes a distorted and confusing blur to all but the most well-prepared. This is a dominion where the sky is a ceiling of shadow and stone, a foreign land where the familiar concepts of the sun's grace are replaced by an echoing struggle for survival. This is the Underdark. It is the unseen world beneath the known world, and a realm that ignites fear and fascination among scholars and explorers alike. You've most likely heard of it, maybe even dipped your boots in its lightless void, but how much do you really know of its origins and lore? How did this subterranean world come to be? Was it always lurking beneath our feet, a shadowy twin of the world above? Or was it, perhaps, the result of some cosmic glitch in the Matrix, a divine temper tantrum, or maybe just nature's own slow, geological equivalent of a very long excavation? The many origins or creation myths, if you prefer, as befitting such a delightfully obscure realm, are, shall we say, open to interpretation. So, interpret we shall, as there are no less than 6 theories that attempt to explain its genesis, each offering a unique and at times biased perspective on the forces that shaped what is the most awe-inspiring realm you will ever find on the material plane. Let us begin, as one often does when faced with the truly unknowable, with the supernatural. Explanations that conveniently blame the gods or other powers and entities, each equally difficult to interview. And for the mystically inclined, and let's be honest, who isn't at least a little mystically inclined when contemplating a world of magic, mind flayers, and a perpetual darkness? For many, though, it's the primordial creation theory that finds wide acceptance. This origin story suggests the Underdark was a fully intended creation of those same nascent gods that formed Toril during the epic known as the Blue Age, or shortly thereafter, preceding the cataclysmic events of the Dawn War. According to this hypothesis, the subterranean realm was formed alongside our surface world and sculpted by the same forces that shaped the mountains and valleys above during the dawn of the planet's life, when even the gods themselves were considered young. Experimenting with untamed cosmic energies in this chaotic ferment, the gods would architect these raw elements of creation to clash and coalesce, ultimately giving birth to the myriad landscapes of our world, both seen above and unseen below. Some might say this is a rather ambitious claim, but then again, creation myths rarely ever suffer from a lack of ambition. A distant cousin to the primordial creation theory, though one with a slightly less reverent tone, is the divine conflict theory. This proposes that the Underdark wasn't so much sculpted as battered into existence, thanks to the fallout and consequence of a full-blown cosmic bar brawl called the Dawn War, with the young gods and ancient primordials duking it out over control of the nascent world of Toril. Unlike the primordial creation theory's rather sanitized vision of elegance and planned underworld building, the divine conflict theory suggests the Underdark is simply the resulting collateral damage, a vast, deep, subterranean scar left by the legendary clashes of those Dawn War entities. One of the variants of this thesis involves the World Serpent, a primordial spirit worshipped by one of the creator races, the Saruk, during the era known today as the Days of Thunder. This World Serpent, who holds more than a few origin theories itself, is said to have burrowed into the ground below Toril to constrict an earth god whose name is lost to time, the resulting conflict giving birth to the Underdark, a realm forged of divine warfare. I have several lengthy volumes of discovery and lore regarding the Blue Age, the Dawn War, the Days of Thunder, and even the origins of the World Serpent and the creator races such as the Saruk already published, and each is available with direct links in the show notes. Our next hypothesis is predictably a firm favorite amongst Elven scholars who do tend to see themselves as architects of, well, pretty much everything. The Elven high magic theory enthusiastically blends natural processes with a healthy dose of Elven magic and a dash or 10 of self-importance. This view centers on two separate yet at least tangentially connected events in the historical records of the Elven people, starting with the exile of the dark Elven goddess Araushni. Following 3 betrayals of her husband and father of the Seldarine, the Elven god Corellon Larethian, Araushni herself, the goddess of destiny and the spinner of fates at the time, was exiled from Arvindor and cast into the abyss. There she transformed into Lolth, the Tanar'ri demon spider queen, and over the millennia that followed, exerted her ever-growing powers and influence upon the dark-skinned elves who in these ancient times were called the Illithiri. The core of this theory surrounds the events of the Crown Wars, an historical period that is widely accepted as one of the most defining in Elven history, and certainly so for the Drow. The fallout of the Crown Wars would culminate in one of the most shameful of events known as the Descent of the Drow, the banishment and transformation of the Illithiri Dark Elves that would become the Drow we know today. While the historical accounting up to this point is widely accepted as fact across all of academia, the supposition of this Elven high magic theory then begins to take a few leaps in logic, going further to suggest that during this time, Lolth, in a fit of demonic remodeling, also carved out the Underdark from her seat of power, the Demon Web Pits, expanding and shaping the sprawling cavernous regions of darkness to suit her purposes. This theory contends that it was Lolth's direct actions that created the Underdark as we know it, all as part of or in response to the descent of the Drow, occurring around -10,100 Dale Reckoning. There are, of course, slight variants to this theory, some less flawed than others. One of the most interesting of those variants posits powers of creation and transformation of the Underdark's mysterious magic known as the Faerzress. From theories that include the Seldarine creating the Faerzress during the Drow descent as a means to bind the Dark Elves beneath the surface of the world, to the more plausible that theorize the high magic ritual that transformed the Illithiri into the Drow also altered the composition of the Faerzress for the same purpose. The final of these Faerzress theories, found among the more sensible of scholars, both Elven and non-Elven alike, including your narrator, posit that in actuality, the Illithiri Dark Elves, as part of their own physiological transformation, were now simply more biologically bound to the latent effects of the Faerzress. This theory and each of its variants all attempt to paint a picture of the subterranean world born either as part of or exclusively from the fallout of a conflict between the elven powers of the Seldarine and the abyssal powers of the Tanar'ri. Never mind the inconvenient fact that the Underdark by most historical accounts is said to have existed for millennia before the events of -10,100 DR, and perhaps even before Araushni's fall from Elven grace during those early ages of our world. So it's only pragmatic that we consider these accountings against a backdrop of Elven scholars who, historically, have not always been overly burdened by inconveniences or truths when a good self-aggrandizing narrative is at stake. While your own belief in this theory may lie in your own lineage, it is nonetheless a theory that in its sheer audacity deserves a nod, if perhaps a slight wink and a smile as well in the process. And for the curious-minded who would like to know more of the Drow descent and the Elven Crown Wars, there are no less than 3 volumes dedicated to those surrounding events that I've also linked below. Leaving behind the grand actions and powers of the divine or high elven magic for a moment, we explore the less glamorous of origin theories. Our 4th creation myth that's called the natural formation theory, and it suggests that the world below has existed since the dawn of time, but devoid of emphasis on the powers of the divine or the primordial. A welcome antidote to the cosmic and elven drama of the preceding accounts, the natural formation theory offers a decidedly more earthly explanation. Instead, this thesis reinforces the notion that the relentless, if rather unexciting, powers of nature are the true architects of the Underdark, a combination of forces that, over countless eons, have shown to be the most persistent and patient. The incessant work of erosion, water endlessly dripping, seeping, and flowing, having carved through rock, widened cracks, and hollowed out vast caverns. The slow but utterly unstoppable grinding and subduction of the world's tectonic plates, each shifting, buckling, creating fissures, chasms, and continent-sized subterranean regions. An expansion aided by a myriad of native creatures, such as the gargantuan purple worm, the monstrous umberhull, Kruthiks, and Onkegs, subterranean aberrations such as the Delver, and even outsiders from the elemental plane like the Earth Glider. These ancient creatures, each with powerful abilities to dig, burrow, and excavate, all gradually hollowed out this deep earth realm by organic evolution and brute force, not divine decree, resulting in the creation of the Underdark as we know it. It is, in essence, the geological long game, a theory of the mundane and a decidedly less thrilling narrative to be sure, but one that also possesses a certain plausibility, controlled by the most patient of forces, time. The 5th of our 6 creation myths presents a contrast to both gradual formation and divine intervention. The cataclysmic event theory offers a more dramatic and sudden narrative, at least on the timescale of epochs. This theory offers a dramatic vision of an Underdark that wasn't always under, a lost surface land or a forgotten continent, quite literally driven below the crust of Toril through one or more undocumented cataclysmic events. Perhaps a rogue asteroid, a particularly powerful volcanic eruption, or maybe the mother of ill-advised Netherese magic. Whatever the force, its effects were truly cataclysmic according to this theory. Over the ensuing millennia in its aftermath, the theory continues the world, ever the resilient, healed itself. New lands formed above, detaching the sunken realm from the life force of the sun's brilliant rays, enclosing it in eternal night. This is the Underdark highlighted as riveting geological theatrics or a cosmic stage drama, the sudden strike of an earth-splitting force and a surface world entombed. A Forgotten Realms colored version of a lost Atlantis, only significantly less aquatic and much darker. It's a theory that appeals to the sensational, a narrative of sudden, almost operatic alteration, a diametrically opposed counter to the slow, geological boredom of natural formation. While I cannot say that I've saved the best or most plausible for last, I can offer that the divine imprisonment theory may at least be among the most interesting. This creation myth is the most recent and, at least in this narrator's opinion, the most fringe. The divine imprisonment theory gained traction and was first found in the fleeting glory of the stylistically bold lore of 4th edition. While I do not subscribe to its suggestions, I must concede I do find the tale quite creative, and perhaps even worthy of consideration were it found in the lore of another world or setting. Mentioned only briefly in a few 4e resources, we're introduced to the god of the Underdark, Toril, the Crawling King. While the tale is light on any deep lore, something fairly common in the 4th edition, the lore we do have tells us that Toril, while on the hunt for a primordial entity named Gargosh during the Dawn War, pursued his quarry deep under the surface of Toril, where I bet you can already guess what happened. In this pre-Underdark realm, Toril, described as a swollen, grotesque worm with a human head, ended up less the hunter and more the hunted. And despite emerging victorious in his primordial pursuit and the ensuing battle, Toril was imprisoned into the subterranean depths. Maimed and disfigured and unable to heal from the fight, Toril crawled through the Underdark for millennia, seeking an escape to the surface, breaking many dimensional boundaries that separated the Underdark from the Feywild and the Shadowfell in the process. Over the millennia, Toril's attempts to escape are said to have carved out many caverns and tunnels, expanding and connecting the Underdark into the vast network it is today. The lore goes on to tell that Toril did eventually reach the surface, only to discover that all its powers were now tied to the Underdark, rendering it powerless should it ever leave. A facet of the lore that studious sages will recognize as a bit of a nod to the Drow's own historical binding to the ambient magic of the underworld known as the Faerzress. In recent years, however, as the 4th edition lore has become less popular and increasingly questioned, few scholars still hold this as a valid theory, with only a scant reference to this god in the texts of the 5th edition. Toril's role is definitely diminished, greatly so in the 5e core text, with not much more than a single line mentioned on page 10 of the 5e Dungeon Master's Guide as one of the Dawn War entities, as well as another reference on page 11 as one of the 3 gods that had been created from scratch. From a lore perspective, by the late 15th century Dale Reckoning, many who once ardently supported this theory had shifted their position, believing now that Toril may have existed but has since faded into myth. Yet true believers still persist, insisting that Toril still lurks somewhere in the deepest reaches of the Underdark. Certainly from those who hold reverence for the 4e lore, but I was also quite surprised in my research to learn that the 5e alternative setting, as described in the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, Toril still holds some status as the worm god of endless tunnels and caverns beneath Exandria, where it also serves as the dark patron of torturers, slavers, and jailers across that realm. While these 6 origin theories of the Underdark may not yield any definitive answers or a final resolution that confirms with certainty how the Underdark came to be, these theories do present players, dungeon masters, and world builders varied shapes and sizes from which to create and enhance your own stories and worlds. And each offer a uniquely thematic flavor, from divine architecture and the slow breath of evolution in time to scars left by warring gods, cosmic karma, or the majestic hubris of elven high magic. And while they cannot all be true, and perhaps none of them are, they each contribute to the rich and layered history, lore, mythologies, and secrets of the night below we call the Underdark. As we close out this opening volume, I want to take just a moment and share some channel and production insight for those that might be interested in a behind-the-scenes look. To be blunt, the research, writing, and production of this Underdark series has been quite possibly the most challenging yet, and I suffered delay upon delay from a case of paralysis by analysis on more than one occasion. This has had the knock-on effect, leading to several script rewrites and indecision in how I wanted to package and format what is an absolutely insane amount of lore that I have gathered. As I mentioned in the open, I've written about 36,000 words for this series. Now, just to put that in context, 36,000 words translates to a little under 5 hours of narrative video. For example, the script for this volume is a bit over 3,500 words, or about 9% of that. And here on this slide are some metrics you might find interesting, specific to the Underdark lore that's going to be included in this series. We just completed the 6 origin theories, but let's take a look at what is yet to come. In addition to what I would call the Big Five of current or historically at one point dominant civilizations of the Underdark, those being the Drow, Duergar, Dwarves, Deep Gnomes, and Illithid, there are still another 15 intelligent races that we will profile in this series, along with over 20 cities and settlements and over 50 monster types. Additionally, we will profile 8 domain regions and their history, 4 historical events and conflicts, another dozen or more notable points of interest, several ruins of ancient empires such as the Netherese, a sentient forest, an undead necropolis, not one but 2 different Dracoliches, and about a dozen more fascinating locations, anomalies, and secrets that I don't want to spoil. And this is all in addition to the core lore that still needs to be covered, such as the Underdark's fascinating geography, its alien ecology, and the mysterious Faerzress that makes life possible in this absolute darkness. Hopefully most, if not all, of that researched lore I can cram into this series, but to say it has been daunting would be a bit of an understatement. So yeah, Underdark lore overload is incoming, and I am working feverishly to get it in front of your ears and eyeballs as quickly as possible. If any of that inspires you to support my work, then please consider liking, subscribing, ringing that bell, and maybe checking out my Patreon, donating via Buy Me a Coffee, or joining our growing Discord. All links are below. And if you find any interest in these end-of-video behind-the-scenes looks, be sure to let me know, as I'm truly not sure if these are even worth adding. A sincere thank you, as always, to my Patreon and channel supporters. Without your support, there is zero chance that this series would be possible. And finally, I would like to shout out my appreciation to Daniel D. and Darwin, 2 amazing Tier 5 Patreon supporters. They're going to get their chance to sit in the director's chair for a future lore video that you'll be hearing about next month. And thank you for listening. I hope to see you all back here for Volume 2 of this series. Until then, take care, my friends.